want to sing him. So everybody, just make it feel as welcome as you can. Everybody!
Start your round of applause now!
Ian McDiarmid's here!
Hi. Welcome to the dark side.
I assume, bit of a busy year, has it been, Ian?
It has, yes, and I've been in charge of a secret for over 2 years. Because when J.J. Abrams called up and said, we're thinking of bringing him back, I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, you know, it's my task to sort of bind those whole 9 movies together with the final one of this particular series, and we didn't really feel we could do it without the Emperor. What do you think? So I said, oh, well, I'll think about it. And then I came up with the word yes, when do we start? So it was a big surprise to me, and it was a big surprise to a lot of other people as well, because I thought I was well and truly dead, as George Lucas had very satisfactorily killed me at the end of Return of the Jedi. But I wasn't, of course. I was very severely injured, physically debilitated and battered, but the mind was as keen and as sharp and as dark as ever.
Yeah, please, have you got that in you?
What are fans of the dark side in?
Interestingly, when you say that, I imagine that's happened to you twice, though, because
yes,
you got the death out of the way early.
You're absolutely right. My whole Star Wars experience, I mean, when JJ called me, that was really sort of not so much third time lucky as lucky for the third time. Because when I was first, all those years ago in Return of the Jedi, when I was of course quite old, not as me but as the Emperor, I just turned up one lunchtime. George had asked to see me through my agent, and before I knew where I was the Emperor of the Universe. And then a few years later, another call from George. I went to meet him, and he said, oh, well, this guy has a history. And then I was Senator Palpatine, and then Chancellor Palpatine, and then back to good old Mr. Evil again. And then I was resurrected for the purposes of Episode 9. So it was a wonderful experience, really, to be surprised, really surprised, for 3 times in my life. Lucky me. And they were very clever. I think it was JJ's idea, Disney too, of course, that they would reveal the fact that I was in it slowly. I thought I was going to have to keep a secret until I attended the LA premiere all of that time. And I had this line prepared. When people say, what are you doing here? And I was going to say, well, I've just shown up to see if I'm in it. I said that anyway, you know, because you never know what happens on the cutting room floor. Anyway, I was happy to see that I was still in. But it was a great experience, and working with an equally wonderful director couldn't be more different, but just as imaginative and as talented. So that was a whole new take on it, and I had a really good time. Lucky me.
Because it was on film, did that mean it was the old way of working, like less takes, less sort of... Because film obviously costs a lot of money. Was it new cameras, old cameras?
It was film cameras. They looked pretty modern to me, and there were usually about at least 3, sometimes 4, maybe occasionally 5 cameras on the set, on the shot at a particular time. But that gave JJ lots of flexibility. What's good about him too, all the individual cameramen had their own input. They might have an idea, and he would listen, and really, by and large, if anyone had a strong notion, he'd incorporate it. And that was true of the actors as well.
It's the most beautifully shot Star Wars I think I've ever seen.
I'm glad you said that. I think it's an odd thing to say about Star Wars, but it's a very beautiful film.
You mentioned that at one point when you were with the screens, it was a lot of people watching, and it felt like you were in a theatre again. Because you have an extensive stage background. What got you into acting in the first place?
Oh, that goes way back. I don't know. I think when I was 10 years old, one day I sort of woke up and realized I was an actor. That was an odd thing, because the school I was at, they were doing this sort of mime of the great Australian, I beg their pardon, song, Waltzing Matilda, and that's about a tramp who dives into, I won't go into details.
Hey, that's one of our most famous tramps, thank you very much.
That's right. Anyway, they were casting the tramp, you know, in my class, and I was quite a shy individual, and they said, okay, anybody wants to try for this, you know, put your hand up. And I found that independently my hand had gone up before it had gone through my brain, and anyway, I got the part. And so I think that's when I sort of thought, well, whatever this thing is that acting is, I think I've got it inside me, and maybe one day I'll get the chance to do it professionally. I can't think of an actor who wouldn't be astonished by the progress, or indeed otherwise, that his career has taken. Because one thing, amazingly, doesn't lead to another, unless you happen to be in 9 Star Wars movies. So it's, no, of course. I mean, the idea that I should be in Star Wars all those years ago is as strange to me as I imagine it would be to any of you, you know. And I still have to sort of shake my head about it. Here I am with this microphone, having done these movies, talking to you. Because it's not just any film, is it, or any saga. It's the one that started it all. The Sunday Times, a few weeks back, before we left the European Union, had a picture of Boris Johnson as me. And his associate, mentor, whatever, is a rather sinister figure called Dominic Cummings. He was Darth Vader. And Jeremy Corbyn was Obi-Wan Kenobi. I didn't quite get that one, actually. And there were a few other characters, but it was very clever. But yes, to use the Emperor, the mad, you know, authoritarian, evil genius, to represent various authoritarian figures around the world, I don't think George Lucas would mind that at all. And also, those of you, and I'm sure it's everybody here, who know the progression of this character throughout the movie, I mean, he used the tropes, the byways, the highways of democracy, which he was always in favor of, to make himself the most powerful person in the history of the universe. And that's still what they're trying. Yes, he was from birth. I don't even want to think about how that happened. He was an authoritarian narcissist. But we can put that phrase to good use in our contemporary universe now.
Before we open it up to the audience, you say from birth, and you say the character won't come back again. I'm saying Baby Palpatine, though.
Oh, I'd watch Baby Palpatine.
Yes,
There's Baby Yoda, that's Baby Palpatine.
Yeah, he would be really cute, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Would you voice Baby Palpatine?
Palpy. I can't imagine that. I saw at the premiere in LA, I bumped into my old friend Frank Oz, who you'll know, and I said, "Congratulations on your baby." And he gave me a strange look. And anyway, we were whisked off somewhere else, thinking, Ian, what did you mean about my child? I said, no, not your child, Frank. You know, Yoda's child. He went, oh, nothing to do with me.
And that's when he showed you a model of Baby Palpatine.
I didn't believe him, of course, but people's private lives should be kept private, in my view.
How did you feel about it, and how did you incorporate it in playing the character?
Did I know what existed?
The cloning thing.
The cloning thing. Yes. Well, of course, there were all sorts of explanations for why I might return. But it's interesting, there was, I think I can reveal something. At one point, the script had the line in that first scene with Adam, when he says, "You're a clone." And I said in that original script, which is no longer with us, more than a clone, less than a man. Which seemed to me to sum him up, really, because we know that, well, the camera has already snaked past the clone tank, in which there are various versions of Snoke, as you probably noticed. Spin it back and have a look. Well, you can't yet, can you? But you'll be able to once it's on Disney Plus, I think, not too far distant future. Yeah, so Snoke was a clone. He did. Palpatine was responsible for everything. He made everything in one way or another. And that's, talk about power early on. If you think back from, when I'm sure you will, go back to watch them in the correct sequence, that's threaded throughout all of the movies, is this sense of evil. And in a sense, when everyone commits a bad act, it's because of this character's influence, either in public or pervasively in private, or apparently dead. So that's power. It's so interesting because neither J.J. nor George Lucas have really concerned themselves with the backstory of this character. I didn't mind because I could have my own ideas. And originally, when we were doing the makeup tests and so on, well, for a start, I had my own eyes. They were removed a little later. They were removed digitally in order to return with real contact lenses when I got back to the guy you saw at the end of Return of the Jedi. But in the original script, there was much more physical detail, pretty horrific physical detail, which I wasn't surprised sort of went as the scripts evolved. But I think, originally, JJ perhaps felt that we had to explain, how he was physically treated when Vader chucked him down that shaft. And then after a while, we thought, well, I don't think that needs to be over-explained. You'll see that terrible face, and you'll see he's in a contraption, some kind of support machine, a little advanced on the contemporary wheelchair. And that will probably say all we need to say. And the whole process of making a film, anyway, is about paring away, pulling back to what you really need to get to the essentials. So that was the progression. But as far as thinking what happened previously, that mind kept alive somehow. I don't know, you probably noticed a few tubes coming out of his body early on. And also he was able to be as commanding, obviously, as he had been, because look at that army.
Yeah.
He made that. But the thing, and the most frustrating thing for him at the beginning of the movie, is he can't get back to his old self. He doesn't have complete physical control over his own body, and presumably not his fantastic power with his fingers. So his progress in the film is to get himself back to being, I won't use the word human, but emperor again, which eventually he does, as you know, through very complicated routes. And then they thought it would be a good idea if I just appeared on stage and said, roll it again, which I did. And the only two actors who knew or were not surprised by that were Adam and Daisy. All of the other actors didn't know that Mr. Evil had come back. I don't know how they managed to keep it from him. But Anthony said, we knew there was a new bad guy. We didn't know it was an old one. Which was, nice to say. But it was great that they didn't. So, and apparently you can look back on that. You see their jaws drop when I come back onto the stage. And then, of course, we all went sort of quiet, and I got a bit coy in interviews and so on, because no one knew whether I was going to be in it or not, or a little, or whether I was just some kind of hologram, or so on. And so the mystery went on. But it was, of course, it was great working with Adam and Daisy, two wonderful actors, and with completely different approaches, both entirely valid, but with marvelous concentration. And then the first scenes I did were actually consecutive in order. The first scene of the movie was with Adam, and I've never seen concentration like that in another actor. I know I was supposed to be scary, but those eyes staring at you at the other side of the camera is, an inspiration.
He's an ex-Marine as well, isn't he?
He's what?
I think he's an ex-Marine.
He is an ex-Marine, yes.
So that added layer of discipline as well.
Absolutely, and there's one scene, I'm sure he had many others. I mean, look at those fights, all of which are him. When I had to merely flick my fingers and throw him into the air, which I enjoyed doing immensely. All I have to stand there and hardly do anything, and of course, as you know, they add everything later. So I was just doing it was very sort of casual, something like that.
Did you
many
have
times.
a choreographer for
and they
that,
thought,
or a coach?
I said she could have the day off. But then he was on a big harness and wire, and every time I did that, they shot him into the air, and he's almost bounced off the big screen at the back many times, because that's what you have to do. And he came in the next day, and I said, "How are you after that?" He went, "Well, bruises, but I'm a Marine." That was a great day. Because that's the day when Palpatine realizes that he somehow has to get the power of both of them. But then realizes that all he needs really is to persuade, it's a terrific notion, it's a terrible notion, his granddaughter to hate him absolutely and to want to kill him more than anything in the world in order to reincarnate as the Empress, the most evil Sith that could ever rule the universe worse than me. That's a marvelously sick idea, I think, really. So the day we moved towards that, and that was over a few days, actually, that was very satisfying.
It'd be an interesting Christmas of that family.
I like two from the recent movie. Everybody knows about Do It, and and that certain number that he commands to be done, but means the slaughter of the innocents. But in the recent movie, I like the first thing I said, which in the original script was not the first thing I said, but it's just the two word "at last." In other words, I can get back and do all the terrible things, and now the army's bigger, and I'm implying that Kyle is a pushover, which of course is not, and so on. And the other quote from the movie that I think I like is, "I have died before." He needs to be able to say that in real life.
As a comedian, Matt and I have said that many a time.
We've
died on stage.
Yeah, as a stage actor, never mind stand up. Yeah.